A man awakens with status ailment immunity at the start. However, it's the most useless skill. He can't even defeat the most ordinary rat. During a dungeon challenge, his teammates betray him. He's knocked off a cliff by a monster's attack. To survive, he's forced to devour monsters. At this moment, the various status ailments that should have been triggered by consuming monsters are nullified. He gains countless new skills instead. Only now does he discover the true purpose of his ability. On this continent, every adult awakens a skill. These people are called adventurers, but Rude's awakened skill only provides debuff immunity and cannot participate in combat. Dungeons are usually filled with miasma. Most adventurers cannot enter directly, but this miasma has no effect on Rude, so he's called a miasma cleaner. The miasma grass before him has the effect of purifying miasma. Selling miasma grass has become his only source of income. As he ventures deeper, several miasma rats appear before him. Monsters living in dungeons all use poison gas or toxins. But this doesn't affect Rude much, so he draws his sword and charges. However, his full-strength attack fails to stop the opponent. Instead, he gets bitten in close combat. At the critical moment, a fireball comes to help resolve the crisis, but nearly costs him his life. The other person shows complete disdain for Rude's identity, and he has no choice but to express gratitude. This day, the Adventurers Guild brings him bad news. A new dungeon has appeared. Inside are countless treasures and riches. Therefore, the guild has gathered countless adventurers, and the miasma grass he brings out has correspondingly dropped in price, because most adventurers choose the new dungeon over the miasma dungeon. As an E-rank adventurer, due to his level, he cannot enter the D-rank new dungeon. For this reason, no one will team up with him. Suddenly, a blonde appears behind him, asking Rude to join his team as a porter. Everyone cannot understand the blonde's actions. Why would he invite an E-rank to join? But the blonde appears very enthusiastic. However, what Rude doesn't expect is that this would be a trap. When they arrive at the dungeon, it's already overcrowded. Every area has been occupied by other teams. The first floor of the dungeon seems to have been fully explored. The pineapple-haired man suggests entering the second floor, while Rude suggests only exploring the first floor, since the new dungeon has many unknowns. This suggestion is opposed by everyone. The monsters on the second floor are indeed more dangerous than the first. However, they still have no resistance against them. Wild wolves fall under magical attacks. Under sword techniques, they're split in two. Rude didn't expect these three people to be so formidable. He himself is too frightened to move his body even slightly. Moments later, wild wolf corpses litter the ground, and Rude takes on the porter's work. Suddenly, a tremendous pressure rushes toward them. A monster descends from above. B-rank monster Minotaur. Everyone cannot believe why a B-rank monster would appear on the second floor. With their strength, they cannot possibly contend with it. At this moment, the blonde tells Rude to return the backpack to him. He needs to use the items inside. Rude thinks he already has a battle plan. However, the blonde's expression changes. He slashes a bloody wound across Rude's back. The pineapple man throws a giant axe, blocking his retreat. Only now does Rude understand they intended to abandon him from the start. They no longer hide their true nature, revealing their ugly faces. Then they abandon him and flee without hesitation, seeing the Minotaur's giant axe about to strike down. Rude desperately dodges the attack, but also crashes heavily into the wall. Just as he's celebrating avoiding the attack, the Minotaur's follow-up attack comes immediately. Under this strike, it actually shatters the surrounding wall. The Minotaur itself didn't expect a huge pit on the other side. Thanks to the Minotaur as a cushion, Rude miraculously survives. But this is only a matter of time. Even without monsters, he'll die from blood loss or starvation. To survive, a bold idea emerges in his mind. That is to gnaw on the monster's corpse. However, this is taboo. If a human consumes a monster's corpse when their magic power is exhausted, the monster's magic particles will erode their body, causing them to exhibit monster-like behavior. The recovered Rude walks through the dungeon like a zombie. His eyes turn crimson. Several bats fly toward him. Skill, roar, intimidating opponents with thunder-like howls. The leading bat immediately falls. Skill, stamina amplification, temporarily enhancing the target's stamina. Then the giant axe swings toward the opponent. Next, he picks up the bat's corpse and gnaws on it. Gained skill, echolocation, effectively detecting surrounding creatures. Monsters in the darkness become as clear as daylight. He never expected his status ailment immunity skill could offset the erosion of monster magic particles and even gain their skills. After his rebirth, he's gone absolutely wild. Various monsters fall instantly. Even without using his eyes, he can sense the monster's magic power. The single-eyed monster is instantly split in two, and the remaining eyeball becomes his food. He now looks more like a monster, showing greed toward the creatures. Each time he devours a monster, he can feel his whole body filled with power. The monsters before him are no longer monsters, but delicious dishes. After an intense battle, he finally reaches the dungeon exit. He never expected to miraculously survive. On the other side, at the Adventurers Guild, Guildmaster Lankus inquires about why Rude failed to escape the dungeon. Belle acts heartbroken, claiming he couldn't protect Rude when they encountered the Minotaur. Sasha even covers her face as if about to cry. Upon learning of the Minotaur incident, Lankus immediately sealed the dungeon and prohibited entry. Suddenly, Rude's figure appears at the entrance. Seeing this, the three break out in cold sweat. Rude's appearance means their deeds will be exposed. Belle hypocritically approaches to greet him, actually threatening Rude not to say what he shouldn't, just as they think the matter can end here. Under Rude's gaze, they find themselves unable to move. Rude tells the truth of what happened in the dungeon. Bell attacked him with a sword from behind. The Pineapple Man used his skill to lure the Minotaur to attack him, while Sasha assisted the two in escaping, completely treating him as a pawn. Bell still wants to argue, but at this moment the Truth Guard, who rarely leaves the palace, appears here, because the death rate of porters who temporarily join their team is abnormally high. So Lankus brought him here. The truth skill is innate and unique. No lie can pass before the truth skill. The Truth Guard only glances once, then slowly speaks. The Crimson Sword team is lying, Rude is telling the truth. This answer shocks everyone present. These three people actually treated their teammate as a disposable pawn. If greater crimes exist, they will lose their adventurer qualifications and become slaves. This result is unbearable for them. The enraged Bell actually raises his sword toward the Truth Guard. At the critical moment, Rude raises his sword to block, then swings his fist at the opponent. Bell is instantly blasted out of the guild. The Adventurers Guild compensates Rude 200,000 gold coins for his losses. Regarding the three members of the Crimson Sword team, if it's proven they used adventurers as bait, then they will permanently become slaves. Rude knows that after what just happened, perhaps no one will bully him anymore, but that doesn't mean they'll become kind. The current priority is to upgrade equipment and enter dungeons to make money, but when he sees the prices, he's stunned. A magic bag costs 200,000 gold coins. Compared to before, the dungeon rats now pose no threat to him. Activating skill, Appraisal. Appraisal is a skill obtained from the single-eyed monster. The rat's status panel appears before him. Only then does he remember to check his own level attributes. The Adventurer nameplate records Adventurer attribute information. Rude looks at the data before him in disbelief. His level has risen from 7 to 42. Opening the skill menu fills him with even more excitement. Various skills are countless. The current floor can no longer satisfy him. 6th floor, Miasma Rats. 9th floor, Miasma Frogs. 13th floor, Miasma Spiders. Until he reaches the 24th floor. Hiding behind, Rude activates his appraisal skill. Lizard Soldier, level 25, 8 skills. Normally a pack creature but appearing alone now. Though somewhat puzzled, its value is worth the risk. Rude raises his sword and strikes the opponent. However, it only leaves a shallow, painless scratch. Rude quickly gives chase. But ahead is a dead end. Just as Rude prepares to attack, the Lizard Soldier before him starts laughing. A huge shadow looms over Rude from behind. The Lizard Soldier's apparent retreat was actually a trap. Rude finds himself caught between enemies front and back, facing the sudden sword strike. Rude quickly retreats to dodge. He can only break through by fighting one-on-one. Just as he's about to deliver a fatal blow, another Lizard Soldier raises its shield to block. The Lizard Soldier behind attacks with a sneak attack. By the time he reacts, the passage is somehow filled with Lizard Soldiers, though he knows they're pack creatures. This ambush tactic is completely beyond Rude's expectations. There must be a commanding Lizard Soldier among them. Indeed, a motionless Lizard Soldier stands not far away. Rude uses his appraisal skill on it. Lizard General, level 32. Indeed, among its skills, he finds command-like abilities. The opponent lets out a roar. Countless Lizard Soldiers attack Rude. Skill, Stamina Amplification. A swing of the great sword instantly breaks their offensive. Then he leaps up and strikes at the boss with his sword. The opponent takes this sword strike head-on. What Rude doesn't expect is that the opponent is completely unharmed. At the same time, the opponent thrusts with its sword. At the critical moment, Rude quickly activates skill, Steel Body, can turn the body into steel. This saves him from disaster. He clearly felt he hit the opponent, yet the opponent shows no injury. Moreover, the opponent has no special skills. Just as he looks confused, he notices a Lizard Soldier with a chest wound. It actually has an exclusive skill, Substitution. The opponent actually took the boss's damage. However, Rude doesn't give it time to react. The Lizard General roars frantically, once again surrounding Rude. Skill, Web Control. All the Lizard Soldiers gathering together actually provides Rude with an opportunity. A web with lightning power descends from above. The unprepared lizard group is firmly caught in the web. Seeing Rude swing his sword, the Lizard General's head is instantly separated from its body. Next comes the delicious moment. The magic bag purchased for 200,000 gold coins actually contains pots, pans, and utensils, as well as seasonings like oil, salt, soy sauce, and vinegar. Monster corpses that other adventurers scoff at are delicious dishes in his eyes. Enjoying delicious food while harvesting new skills. Indeed, he receives notifications of new skills, but these skills are inferior compared to previous ones. Suddenly, a cry for help comes from deep in the tunnel. He never expected someone to venture deeper into the dungeon than him. He quickly packs up his utensils and runs over. On the other side, a group of people surround a young girl. The girl before them is actually an elf. Rude's appearance is somewhat unexpected to them. The scarred man's eyes reveal killing intent, but Rude remains nonchalant. With the elf girl's warning, he learns they are the notorious adventurer hunters, who specialize in hunting adventurers. Under his appraisal skill, he can only see their levels, unable to see through their skills and status. Everyone else is the same, only showing levels, and their levels are much higher than his own. They might have skills or items that hide their true strength. The scarred man speaks coldly, kill him. The sleazy man sleazily swings his sword. Rude doesn't dodge, raising his sword to block. Both sides are evenly matched, just as the opponent prepares a new offensive. Rude spits green liquid from his mouth, skill, Venom. This completely catches the opponent off guard. The next second, the opponent lies on the ground, wailing continuously. Moments later, he falls silent. In Rude's eyes, they're not ordinary adventurers at all. He can only choose this kind of combat to survive. The scarred man also realizes his uniqueness. They cannot fight one-on-one. Then two of them charge forward, facing their fierce offensive. The opponents have no intention of leaving anyone alive. At the critical moment, he creates distance. However, the opponent's kick follows immediately. Skill, steel body. But he's still kicked into the swamp. The long-haired man wants to continue pursuing. The scarred man quickly stops him. Because before them is a poison swamp, continued advance will cause poison gas corrosion. However, the poison gas has no effect on Rude whatsoever. Normally, the swamp's poison gas would drain an adventurer's magic power. To keep Rude at bay, their bodies are already feeling discomfort. Seeing the elf girl's injuries worsening, he has no choice but to leave the poison swamp. Seeing Rude unaffected by the poison gas, the scarred man's pupils constrict as he realizes the man before him has status ailment immunity skill. He quickly orders his subordinate to attack. Compared to before, this time Rude appears more relaxed, because miasma accumulating in the body weakens various attributes. The long-haired man's cleaver comes at him, but Rude doesn't dodge. Though it clearly hits his body, it cannot penetrate even slightly. This time, steel body blocks the opponent's attack. Skill, lightning cloak. Then Rude is enveloped in lightning. The two are instantly electrocuted, charred outside and tender inside. The next second, they lose the ability to fight back. Skill, airstrike, continuously compressing air in his hands. Then it flies toward the opponent like a bullet. The endless skills completely catch the scarred man off guard. Not understanding why a human would have monster skills, Rude says nothing and charges with his sword. At this time, level differences don't matter much. Due to miasma poisoning, strength drops exponentially. At the critical moment, the opponent activates agility enhancement, then charges toward Rude. At the same time, skill activates physical propulsion. The opponent's face shows an expression of disbelief. Rude remains expressionless. If not for status ailment immunity, he would be the one fallen. However, immediately after, a wasp's attack comes head-on. Rude uses appraisal on it. Miasma, level 37, 8 skills. Rude strikes first, charging with his sword. The opponent's aerial slash comes head-on. Instantly brushing past the girl, the wasp occupies the aerial advantage. However, the next second, Rude uses the same skill, aerial slash. Countless wind blades fly toward the wasp. The wind blades leave several bloody cuts on its body. In an instant, the opponent releases paralyzing scales. But these scales have no effect on Rude. At this moment, the girl is casting magic. A powerful wind blade shoots out. Under this strike, the wasp collapses. Rude is somewhat surprised that the girl can use wind magic, but he doesn't forget to finish it off. The girl also discovers Rude's uniqueness. Not only status ailment immunity, but also monster skills. Suddenly, the girl clutches her chest and kneels in pain. Rude quickly takes her out of the dungeon. Only then does the girl introduce herself. I'm Alicia, an adventurer. This answer surprises Rude. She's actually the famous Emerald Storm Alicia, a member of a famous S-rank team in the kingdom of Udius. Alicia doesn't deny it. Their team was defeated by monsters while challenging an S-rank dungeon 5 years ago. The captain sacrificed himself. One member was severely injured, another member was swallowed by the dungeon, while she was cursed by the dungeon. The girl opens her collar. Though only a low-level curse, it has begun to spread. They tried various methods but could only slow the spread. Those adventurer hunters began implementing their plan after learning of this. Though she will eventually die, she doesn't want to be at anyone's mercy. Suddenly, Rude seems to think of something. He quickly checks his skills, indeed finding a substitution skill that can choose a target to take their attacks in abnormal status. Then Rude places his hand on Alicia's shoulder. Skill, substitution. A black aura spreads along his arm. At this time, Alicia realizes Rude wants to transfer the curse to himself. A huge phantom appears behind him. Just as the phantom prepares to erode Rude, skill status ailment immunity activates. Then the phantom disappears into thin air. Everything happens as Rude expected. After checking her guild card, Alicia finds her status has returned to normal. His status ailment immunity skill eliminated the curse. Alicia never imagined a stranger could do such a thing. Recently, Rude's village was attacked by monsters. His family and friends died as a result. At that time, an S-rank adventurer appeared and slayed the monsters. This became his goal to pursue. Before this, Alicia also wanted to gain more powerful strength. After removing the curse, she wants to challenge that dungeon once more, believing her companions are still deep in the dungeon. Therefore, she wants to form a team with Rude. The next day, the two come to Banama's fishing ground. A type of fish living in the water can be made into a delicacy, so they accepted the restaurant owner's quest. Suddenly, an attack shoots from the water. It's exactly the fish they're looking for. But the next second, they're dumbfounded. Dense schools of fish surround them. Genebu, level 23, has high-speed movement, water bullet, and sniper skills. Water bullets blast out. Rude quickly raises his sword to block, but then a rain of attacks strikes toward him. Because the footing on the boat is too small, he cannot dodge the attacks. Rude jumps directly into the water. Countless monster fish instantly surround him, but he looks excited. Skill, lightning cloak. Streams of lightning pour out. Then the fish float on the water surface. However, Rude is somewhat puzzled. These fish are clearly fewer. The fish in deeper waters didn't attack. He then explains the situation to Alicia. After tying the rope, he continues diving. A crab monster with tentacles on its back comes into view. Tentacle, level 38. Skills, paralysis, self-amputation, poison resistance, and accelerated healing. Scales grow at the ends of the opponent's tentacles. Moments later, they drop off. Rude's face is full of astonishment. The dropped scales actually become aggressive Janabu. Understanding the situation, Rude wants to swim up. However, he's firmly pulled by the opponent's tentacles. At the critical moment, he uses Lightning Cloak again. The opponent cuts off its tentacles when receiving lightning damage to avoid fatal injury. The crab monster charges at him again. Seeing this, Rude quickly pulls the rope and swims up. Alicia sees the commotion and quickly casts magic. This also disrupts the crab monster's attack rhythm. Rude tells Alicia about the underwater situation. There's a boss underwater continuously producing Janabu, and in water, the monster has greater advantage. At this moment, Rude seems to make a difficult decision. He has to tell Alicia his secret of devouring monster corpses. He simply says, "Please don't tell anyone else what you're about to see. The underwater monster doesn't know danger is approaching." Rude dives into the water again. Skill, high-speed swimming. Rude moves through the fish school like lightning. The monster's tentacles strike at him. He dodges using high-speed movement skills. In an instant, he reaches the monster. A sword pierces the monster's body. Skill, lightning shroud. A bolt of lightning suddenly explodes. One strike instantly kills the underwater monster. But when he returns to shore, he finds no one there. He thinks, indeed, no one would want to be with a freak. Moments later, Alicia emerges from the forest carrying firewood. She doesn't mind Rude's abnormal behavior. At night, Alicia again invites Rude to join her team. The two come to the guild management center. Alicia's identity as an S-rank adventurer greatly surprises the receptionist, but they don't understand why she would team up with an E-rank. Though Rude has gained some achievements, he still lacks battle records. The forest near Barona, home to Grey Wolves. Grey Wolf, level 11. Rude activates stealth skill and approaches from behind, catching them off guard and slaying them. The commotion attracts more Grey Wolves. Seeing this, Alicia summons her spirit, using the spirit's power to cast magic. A deep trench suddenly appears before them. This scene truly surprises Rude. Suddenly, a Grey Wolf sneak attacks from behind Rude. Rude has no time to react. At the critical moment, Alicia uses wind magic to bring him into the air. Only then do they discover more Grey Wolves hidden in the forest watching them. Skill, echolocation. The positions of wolves hiding in the dark become crystal clear. Then it's a matter of Alicia pointing where to strike. The attacked Grey Wolves can only flee frantically. But this isn't Rude's real purpose. Rather, it's to gather them in one place. Rude, using stealth skill, suddenly appears. Skill, paralysis breath. Moments later, the surrounding Grey Wolves collapse. The two never expected the Grey Wolves to be so numerous. Only then does Rude remember Alicia's spirit magic. It turns out Alicia can summon her own spirits, using minimal magic power to extract their strength and cast powerful magic. The floating magic in the air is just one of their skills. Alicia has various souls of water, electricity, light, and wind. Only dark and fire souls cannot adapt to her. If souls don't merge with oneself, they consume much more magic power. Suddenly, thick smoke rises from a village not far ahead. There are monsters invading the village. Minotaur, level 27. The opponent can even cast magic. Ordinary villagers have no resistance against him. A flaming spear shoots from a magic circle. At the critical moment, a surging water column blocks it. Skill, water bullet. Seeing his attack ineffective, the goat monster seems displeased. Then it shifts its attack target. Baphomet, level 27, has fire and earth magic. Though the opponent is only level 27, lower than the lizard soldier, its attribute values are extremely high. At this moment, Rude has his eye on the opponent's magic skills. As long as he devours the opponent, he can obtain them. The opponent's flaming spears blast out. Rude dodges by moving aside, leaping up to slash at the opponent, but blocked by the opponent's steel claws, unable to advance even slightly. Just as he prepares to continue attacking, two flaming spears shoot toward his position. At the critical moment, he retreats to dodge. Alicia, who is evacuating villagers, can't help but worry. It looks like the opponent released all flaming spears, but actually kept two for defense. The two of them must cooperate to possibly defeat the opponent. Because villagers haven't completely evacuated, Alicia cannot use more powerful magic to fight. After determining the attack strategy, Rude grips his sword with both hands and charges, facing the incoming flaming spear without dodging, continuing to charge forward. Alicia's water magic follows closely behind. The two magics instantly collide. The opposing attribute magics cancel each other out. The next second, the opponent casts earth magic. Countless stones fly from the magic circle. While Alicia simultaneously uses earth magic, both sides' stones collide together. Precise control actually avoids harming Rude. This is the strength of an S-rank adventurer. Rude leaps up and slashes. Skill, stamina amplification. This sword cuts off the opponent's steel claw, just as it extends its steel claw to attack again. A rocket flies rapidly, piercing through its skull. The flames inside instantly explode. The unusual explosion draws villagers' attention. Alicia lies, claiming Baphomet escaped after this strike. Because the opponent might return, they need to continue pursuit. On the other side, in a forest, Rude is already cooking Baphomet's corpse. After Alicia takes some food, she also comes here to meet up. Her explanation convinces the villagers completely. Even without finding the monster's corpse, they won't suspect anything. Then it's time to enjoy the delicious monster corpse. successfully harvesting Baphomet's skills. Though Alicia mentally prepared herself, she still has reservations about devouring monster corpses. Suddenly, the nearby grass rustles. Several creatures with red fur on their heads appear. Pig, level 22, skill, flash step. Their numbers seem somewhat unexpected. Rude excitedly wants to cast magic. But the next second, the air seems frozen, nothing happens. The opponents charge with flash step. When moving in a straight line for a certain distance, speed rapidly increases. After acceleration, destructive power multiplies. Rude looks grim. The opponents actually knocked over his carefully prepared deodorized delicacy. Angry Rude's eyes glow red. Alicia intervenes in time. Because both of them have very little magic power left, they need to retreat beyond the pig's attack range. As soon as she finishes speaking, they quickly flee. The two hide on a tree branch. Alicia is curious why Rude cannot cast magic skills. Rude is also puzzled. This is the first time he's encountered this situation. With Alicia's reminder, he checks his skill attributes. The skills clearly exist but cannot be used. Yet having the skills allows instinctive understanding of how to use them. Alicia pondered deeply. Not because she couldn't understand magic and thus couldn't use it. In her view, Rudd could use fire magic. But it was just very weak. Suddenly a flash of inspiration struck. Using monster skills required not magic power but mana. So Rudd needed to know how to manipulate mana. He closed his eyes and thought. Recalling that first time he devoured the Minotaur's corpse, the burst of power within his body. Thinking about channeling this force from within his body outward, Alicia watched in astonishment at the scene before her. Rudd actually succeeded in casting spells. As long as one could sense mana, they could cast magic, like a part of one's own body. Several flame spears descended from the sky, crashing down on the pig. The pitch-black night instantly blazed with fire. The commotion here attracted an even larger monster, the Pig King with flames burning on its back, level 38. It charged toward them at breakneck speed. At the critical moment, Rudd activated his flash step skill to dodge the charge. Alicia hadn't even reacted before the opponent was right in front of them. She couldn't understand why such a monster would appear outside the labyrinth. Skills, flash step, fire resistance. Rudd activated earth magic. A massive fist formed of mud crashed toward the opponent, but it was instantly shattered by the opponent's charge. Unable to dodge in time, Rudd took the hit head on. He was sent flying back into a tree. The Pig King continued charging toward Alicia. Alicia quickly summoned spirits to cast wind magic. Several wind blades flew toward the opponent, but her current strength couldn't penetrate the opponent's tough hide. Just as the opponent launched another attack, a sonic pressure wave struck. Skill, roar. This roar successfully drew the opponent's attention. If the battle became a war of attrition, Alicia would become its target. And aside from using flash step for straight-line charges, the opponent had no other skills. Rudd gripped his greatsword tightly and slowly raised it. At the same time, the Pig King charged forward. Rudd felt the mana within his body, drawing it out and infusing it into his sword. The moment they made contact, in the next second, he slashed toward the opponent. The opponent's massive body was split in two. This was his first attempt at infusing mana into a weapon. He hadn't expected it to succeed. Alicia was completely stunned. But the next second, the sword in his hand couldn't withstand the power and shattered. Meanwhile, on the 7th floor of the Miasma Labyrinth, a small party was attacked by miasma rats. Working together, the team slayed them. Suddenly, the swordsman noticed something unusual. There was actually a hidden staircase nearby. At the end, a treasure chest was placed. Inside the chest lay a greatsword that seemed to contain tremendous power. Fatty warned about the curse power in the sword but was refuted by his teammates. They believed this was a blessing from heaven. As they left, Fatty still glanced back at the chest. At that moment, the greatsword emanated a mysterious aura. The old man looked at the broken sword before him in disbelief. Because brute force alone couldn't have severed it. He immediately thought that Rudd had infused something into the sword. Rudd and the old man before him had known each other for a long time, trusting each other. So Rudd told the old man his secret about gaining power by devouring monster corpses. But the old man's unsurprised expression was beyond Alicia's expectations. In his view, as long as it was good for Rudd, eating anything didn't matter. Rudd stated his purpose. He wanted a sword that could withstand mana. He even produced the harvested magic stones as forging materials. The value of the magic stones before him made the old man show surprise. Finally, he took out a sword and gave it to Rudd, but he warned him not to infuse mana into it. If it broke, they would need to compensate him. Just as they solved their weapon problem, the party from earlier appeared before them, wanting to join their group. But the next second, the leading swordsman collapsed to one side. The sword in his hand glowed red, continuously muttering the word kill. Suddenly his expression became twisted. He turned and slashed at his teammate with his sword. The sudden turn of events left them stunned. Then he raised his sword to slash at Alicia. At the critical moment, Rudd quickly raised his sword to block. At this point, Roto's face was twisted beyond recognition. The surrounding adventurers rushed forward to stop him, but he slashed at them indiscriminately. Alicia, snapping out of it, cast wind magic, directly blowing the opponent out of the tavern. This scene stunned both of them, but what they hadn't expected was that the opponent was completely unharmed after taking the magic attack. Then the opponent charged toward them. Rudd quickly gripped his sword with both hands to defend, but the opponent's strength was clearly much greater. Roto, level 22. Status, Berserk. Rudd looked at the appraisal information in disbelief. The opponent had fallen into madness. At the same time, Alicia cast wind magic again. This time it hit precisely as well, but the next second, she showed an expression of disbelief. The sword in Roto's hand was actually absorbing the wind magic's power. Visible red aura emanated from the sword. Tentacles grew from the sword, wrapping around Roto. Only then did everyone realize this was a cursed sword. It could absorb magic to enhance its own power. After absorbing Alicia's wind magic, its power greatly increased. It slashed down at Rudd with one strike. The tremendous force made Rudd grit his teeth to endure. This power was completely different from before. The opponent's attacks came one after another. Rudd crouched down and slashed a bloody wound on the opponent's thigh. The next second, his eyes froze. The tentacles that grew out were actually sealing the wound. Alicia watched anxiously from the side but was helpless, because her magic attacks would only strengthen the opponent. They had to find a chance for a killing blow. Rudd thought about trying his substitute skill, transferring the opponent's curse to himself. When he had helped Alicia remove her curse, it took about 10 seconds. Now he had to find a way to restrain the opponent. A sudden, fierce strike from the opponent made Rudd wince in pain, but he used this opportunity to lock the opponent's arm. Just as he was thrown off by the opponent, he activated earth magic. Several giant hands converged. The opponent couldn't absorb this type of physical magic. After a moment, he couldn't move. Skill, substitute. Tremendous curse power burst forth. The opponent's expression also changed. A black aura appeared behind Rudd. The next second, he was repelled. He hadn't expected the substitute skill to fail. Roto was eroded by the curse again, and cracks appeared in the binding mud hands. Rudd was alarmed. It wasn't that Roto rejected his skill, but that the sword was resisting this power. Then he activated flame magic. At this point, Roto broke free from his restraints and dodged the attack. Rudd controlled the flames to strike again. Several fireballs flew toward his back, but the opponent blocked with a strange posture. The flame magic was absorbed by the opponent again. The red aura turned black. The opponent's power surged, tentacles completely enveloping Roto. Even his form changed, his entire body floating in the air. Rudd quickly used his appraisal skill. Two-headed curse, level unknown. In an instant, the opponent's sharp sword reached his eyes. Rudd quickly sidestepped to dodge, then raised his sword and charged forward. But with the opponent's casual strike, Rudd was sent flying. The opponent's power had increased again. Skilled techniques exactly like a warrior, just as the opponent's sword was about to strike down. At the critical moment, Alicia circulated magic power throughout her body, enhancing her physical abilities. She kicked toward the opponent, immediately followed by a magic impact. The opponent's body crashed into the wall behind. Rudd hadn't expected that Alicia, as a mage, could also fight in close combat. Normally, mages would be helpless once enemies got close, but Alicia had her own unique methods. Facing the current two-headed curse, the only way to defeat it was to destroy its heart. Alicia's words were noticed by both of them. At this point, the battle entered white-hot intensity. The opponent could actually handle attacks from both Rudd and Alicia. Because it had two heads, its field of vision was much broader. Suddenly, Rudd thought of a method. He quickly told Alicia to retreat. Then he activated magic skills. But this time, it was only to raise dust and obscure the opponent's vision. A figure appeared beside the opponent. The opponent quickly swung his sword down, but discovered it was just a mud figure. At this moment, Rudd came up behind him, slashing his sword down toward the opponent's body. Seeing this, Alicia summoned an earth spirit. A spike pierced through the opponent's body. The spike didn't pierce the heart, failing to cause fatal damage. The opponent's greatsword swung down toward Alicia. At the critical moment, Fatty rushed over. At the same time, Blondie charged forward with tears in his eyes, sword raised, stabbing down toward the opponent's heart. Under this sword strike, the curse power slowly dissipated. Roto's body also appeared, but there was no possibility of survival. Rudd looked at the cursed sword that had fallen to one side, thinking that even if he buried it somewhere, there would be another victim in the future. At this moment, the cursed sword continuously muttered the word kill. Status abnormality nullification activated. Unaffected by abnormal states, Rudd directly told it to shut up. Guild personnel finally arrived belatedly. Lancaster looked at Roto lying on the ground, and the cursed sword in Rudd's hand. He roughly guessed what had happened. After confirming that the cursed sword would bring negative effects that eroded the mind, Lancaster couldn't help but look at Rudd nearby. Rudd also revealed that he had the status abnormality nullification skill and thus wasn't affected, and stated that with the sword in his hands, there wouldn't be another victim. Lancaster thanked Rudd and Alicia for controlling the situation's development. Then he revealed another piece of bombshell information. Monsters outside the labyrinth had abnormally increased. According to investigation, these monsters came from the newly discovered Aberio labyrinth, and the investigation results seemed to indicate there was some kind of monster in the labyrinth. Miasma Dragon Basilista. Lancaster had only read about it in books. This type of monster was at least level 70 or above. Besides combat power, it could also release high-concentration miasma. Therefore, he speculated that this high-concentration miasma had stimulated other monsters, causing them to flee the labyrinth. And to bring back these results, the investigation team was severely damaged and was still under treatment. If this continued to develop, miasma would seep out of the labyrinth, bringing catastrophic disaster. Understanding the consequences, Rudd agreed to Lancaster's request. Then they came to the medical room. Skill, substitute. Lancaster looked at the scene before him in disbelief. All the miasma erosion transferred to Rudd. He couldn't believe there was a skill that could nullify others' abnormal states. Rudd explained that as long as he touched others and they didn't refuse, he could transfer abnormal states. Now only he and Alicia could completely resist miasma erosion. This meant only the two of them could challenge the new labyrinth alone. In his view, the fewer people entering the labyrinth, the fewer people he had to protect, and the greater their chances of victory. After thinking for a moment, Lancaster agreed to Rudd's suggestion. He then entrusted Rudd with a guild quest to conquer the Miasma Dragon. However, what they hadn't expected was that miasma had already spread to the lower floors of the labyrinth. Goblins that shouldn't appear on this floor had even appeared, but the opponent was split in two under Rudd's single sword strike. The miasma spread was faster than they had anticipated. Alicia's purification items were becoming increasingly ineffective. Seeing this, Rudd became somewhat worried, but Alicia didn't want to repeat past mistakes by abandoning her teammate. Otherwise, she would never be able to forgive herself. As her words ended, Rudd placed his hand on her shoulder. Skill, substitute. He eliminated the miasma erosion on Alicia. As expected, as long as there was contact, he could eliminate the miasma's effect on the opponent. However, it would reaccumulate once they separated. Alicia then grasped Rudd's hand. The two went deeper, and the miasma became denser. Using echolocation confirmation, they discovered two monsters lurking ahead. And to survive in this environment, their strength must be stronger than ordinary monsters. Although they could take a detour, Rudd still wanted to face them head-on. Alicia immediately saw through his desire to eat the monsters, and Rudd awkwardly denied it. Cursed Swordgram, he wanted to test his strength before confronting the Miasma Dragon. Sure enough, two monsters appeared from the miasma. Rolling Beetle, level 33. Rudd activated Earth Magic. The opponent's location instantly exploded, but it didn't seem to take much damage. Then the opponent curled up and rolled toward them. Alicia's face lit up with excitement. She immediately summoned an Earth Spirit. Giant stone hands firmly grasped the opponent. Seeing this, Rudd quickly drew his sword and charged forward. One slash split the stone hand, but only left a shallow wound on the beetle's body. The damage was too superficial. The cursed sword hadn't unleashed its full power. Then he seemed to think of something, raising his sword and shouting to Alicia. Alicia instantly understood his intention. A gust of wind magic flew toward him. Rudd used the cursed sword to absorb this energy. At this moment, visible changes occurred. The beetle was instantly cut into several pieces. At this point, the beetle behind was already trembling, but it was still pierced by Rudd. Their first cooperation was surprisingly smooth. Then they cleared the miasma erosion from Alicia's body. Rudd awkwardly suggested devouring the beetle corpses, because magic power couldn't truly restore his stamina, and monster corpses could not only restore stamina but also increase mana. Alicia couldn't help but be curious about the cursed sword's power. Rudd felt that after the cursed sword absorbed magic, his physical abilities were greatly enhanced. Importantly, even when infused with mana, it wouldn't break. But the previous hand sword's single target attack seemed stronger. Hearing this, the cursed sword seemed displeased. A murmuring voice entered Rudd's mind. "Give me magic stones to eat." Following the voice, Rudd came beside the beetle. He took out the beetle's magic crystal and placed it in front of the sword's eye. The eye extended several tentacles to wrap around the crystal, devouring it at a visible speed. Afterward, the sword body changed. Its size doubled, becoming a great sword. Alicia wondered why Rudd would know such things. Rudd didn't hide it, saying a voice had entered his mind that only he could hear. Perhaps because it heard him call it weak, it became displeased and spoke up. At this point, Rudd also figured out how to use the cursed sword. Suddenly, the ground began shaking. The labyrinth was actually collapsing. At the critical moment, Alicia summoned a wind spirit, lifting both of them into the air. At the last second, they escaped the collapsing floor. The labyrinth floor before them was pitch black. Skill, Heat Search. A giant creature appeared before them. Miasma Dragon, Basilista, level 75. It had various skills. Agility wasn't high, but its health exceeded 500. Its claws also contained poison. The opponent just looked once. A powerful sense of oppression hit them. Seeing this, the two could only use magic for long-range attacks. Just as Alicia was about to summon spirits, green light emanated from the Miasma Dragon's mouth as it launched an attack. Rudd thought about maintaining distance to observe the opponent's attack patterns. Alicia could barely hold on under the intense miasma erosion. A red light shot from the miasma. The Miasma Dragon breathed fierce flames that burst forth. At the critical moment, Rudd used Flash Step to dodge. The floor and pillars instantly melted. The Miasma Dragon's attack didn't stop. Alicia quickly summoned a wind spirit, attaching wind magic to Rudd's feet. His movement speed increased several times. He leaped up and swung his sword. However, the opponent's dragon scales were incredibly hard, only leaving a shallow wound. After stabilizing himself, he quickly told Alicia to continue attacking. Alicia fired several wind blades. The sharp wind blades still couldn't penetrate the dragon scales. Even using psychic magic failed to cause damage. The opponent only showed a few shallow marks. Then its tail swept out. Countless spikes flew toward them. Skills, Wind Escape. Skill, Steel Body. Other spikes pierced into stone pillars. They hadn't expected the opponent to have not only strong defense but also ranged attacks. At this point, Alicia asked Rudd to buy her time. 5 colored magic orbs surrounded Alicia. The Miasma Dragon seemed to know Alicia's intention. It breathed fierce flames again to attack. Rudd quickly cast Earth Magic. Several stone fists emerged from underground, disrupting the opponent's rhythm. Then he leaped up and swung his great sword down. The bursting flames changed direction. At this moment, Alicia was completely defenseless. She could only rely on Rudd to hold off the Miasma Dragon. Alicia was about to pour all her magic power into this single attack. 5 elemental magics gathered before her. At the same time, the opponent seemed to sense danger. It actually activated dark magic. Several dark spikes emerged from a magic circle, rushing toward Alicia at extreme speed. At the critical moment, Rudd used the cursed sword to absorb the dark spikes. At this point, Alicia completed her charge. Skill, Spirit's Quintet. All abilities gathered at one point and fired. The opponent's location exploded. However, after the smoke cleared, the opponent still stood before them. Rudd used Substitute to clear the miasma from Alicia's body. At this point, Alicia had exhausted all her magic power. Now it's my turn to perform. Man and beast glared at each other. The opponent attacked first. Seeing this, Rudd quickly countered. Skill, Roar. Then raised his sword and charged forward rapidly. The Miasma Dragon's giant claw slammed down. Rudd used 90-degree flash step to dodge. After absorbing magic earlier, Rudd clearly felt the cursed sword's power had become stronger. One slash down. It indeed broke through the opponent's dragon scales. Then came continuous attacks. After a while, Rudd felt the cursed sword's power gradually weakening. The amplification effect from absorbing magic was gradually decreasing. The Miasma Dragon seemed to notice this too. It randomly unleashed a miasma shockwave in his direction. Although Rudd could be immune to miasma, he couldn't completely resist the shockwave's impact. The opponent's spikes followed immediately. At the critical moment, he used Flash Step to dodge. The Miasma Dragon's palm came head-on, hitting directly. Skill, Steel Body, but it only blocked part of the impact. He still flew backward. The wall behind was smashed with a large crater. The tremendous pain nearly made him fall unconscious. He remembered when he fell into the deep pit, he was similarly near death. But this time was different. Then a rock giant hand burst from the ground, blocking the opponent's attack. Rudd leaped up. At the same time, the Miasma Dragon breathed fierce flames. Skill, Thread Manipulation, weaving a giant net behind him. He knew ordinary attacks were ineffective. He could only use the slingshot effect to increase explosive force. The fierce flames burst forth. 2 forces collided together. He hadn't expected the cursed sword could absorb mana from the flames. Combined with his own mana, he could unleash a full-power strike. Rudd endured the flames' scorching heat, unable to advance even an inch. Suddenly he was wrapped in ice, resisting the flames. It turned out Alicia was casting ice magic from below, attaching it to Rudd. Finally, under magic's enhancement, he swung his sword, instantly splitting the opponent in 2. Labyrinth clearing quest complete. Because Alicia had very little magic left, he stopped Alicia from healing him, then activated the monster healing skill, Blood Drain. Streams of blood flowed from the monster corpse. After a moment, his stamina was restored, using the substitute skill to clear miasma from Alicia's body. Then the two came to the labyrinth's deepest part. At the room's end was a labyrinth core, with a magic circle in the middle. Only a very few adventurers could reach here. Releasing magic before the core would transport them back to the labyrinth entrance. Normally, even after clearing monsters, the core wouldn't be destroyed, allowing repeated conquest. Because of this labyrinth, Rudd learned he could gain power by devouring monster corpses. His life changed afterward, so he was grateful for the opportunities the labyrinth brought him. However, to prevent the Miasma Dragon from reviving, and miasma seeping from the labyrinth again, he unhesitatingly chose to raise his sword and strike down. On the other side, after Rudd entered the labyrinth, the Adventurers Association lost contact with them. They weren't clear what happened inside the labyrinth. There was no information about their return. When Rudd was called the Miasma Cleaner, Lancaster tried to mediate, but it had no effect. In this world, strength represented everything. Adventurers without strength were destined not to go far. At this moment, the door was pushed open. The story of the two conquering the labyrinth and destroying the core spread throughout the entire guild. On the other side, in a city near Verona, Rudd's actions ruined their plan to plunder the new labyrinth. Another person thought this was actually better, because the new labyrinth's ownership rights were unclear. Now that the labyrinth was destroyed, they could demand compensation from Verona's Adventurers Guild. That night, the two cooked the Miasma Dragon's flesh. Venom Drake steak, level unknown, condition rare. The grilled meat's aroma made Alicia's mouth water, but she still couldn't accept devouring monster flesh. The next day, the Adventurers Guild confirmed the labyrinth conquest reward, 1.5 million gold coins. Rudd was instantly shocked. A burial labyrinth was level 70, and it was conquered by just 2 people, so the reward was this high. Next was updating Rudd's adventurer level. Currently, Rudd was level 52, still a D-rank adventurer. Generally, leveling speed slowed after reaching level 40, but because Rudd constantly fought above his leveling speed was faster than normal. However, although Alicia was level 45, she was an S-rank adventurer. It turned out level was just an indicator, while combat ability was defined through skill and personal experience. Suddenly, a group of people walked in. They didn't put the surrounding people in their eyes at all. Rudd hadn't expected the person they were looking for would be himself. What surprised him even more was that the opponent was actually a neighboring city lord, Gore, the city lord. Right off the bat, he questioned why Rudd destroyed a labyrinth that should have belonged to them. A burial labyrinth appeared at the border between 2 cities. They should have been able to profit from it, and their territory was damaged because of the labyrinth monsters. So how would they compensate for their losses? Gore, the city lord, had an aggressive attitude. At this point, Alicia stepped forward. Such negotiations should be between guilds, and currently there were no reports of monsters entering Gore's territory. This momentarily left the city lord speechless. At this moment, a man stepped out from behind the opponent. It was Gore Guild's president, who recognized Alicia as a survivor of the Emerald Storm team. But he didn't know Alicia had already broken her curse. He spoke provocatively, "Alicia, don't meddle in affairs that don't concern you. You're just a worthless survivor." Before he finished speaking, tremendous magic power erupted, instantly making him feel a trace of fear. To think he'd be scared by a level 45 girl. At this point, Lancaster appeared to stop this farce. He had them follow him inside. Then another man appeared. Rudd was speechless. Why were men appearing one after another? Alicia recognized the person's identity, an old teammate. The Emerald Storm team's story was deeply rooted in people's hearts, so the opponent immediately invited Alicia to join his team. She directly refused him, but he still pestered Alicia relentlessly, completely ignoring Rudd beside her, so Alicia could only tell the truth. Her curse had been lifted, and she had formed a new team with Rudd. Then she turned and left. Albert blamed everything on Rudd. He didn't believe Rudd could defeat the Miasma Dragon. He had just stolen Alicia's achievement. At this moment, Rudd seemed to sense a murderous aura. Looking at the level assessment document in hand, both were excited. D-rank adventurer skipped C rank and directly promoted to B rank. At this point, Albert appeared again, even cursing Barona Guild. Promoted to B rank based on others' achievements. Was Barona Guild full of idiots? This instantly aroused everyone's displeasure. But regardless, determining B rank qualification was entirely up to the guild's decision. Both sides were on edge. But the long-haired man still acted superior. "You all look like idiots." Anger was instantly ignited, but he was casually thrown out by Albert. Their strength levels were not in the same league. Alicia quickly spoke to stop them. At this point, the opponent pointed at Rudd. An incompetent adventurer only brings danger to other adventurers. Rudd accepted the opponent's challenge. Only strength could make others stay silent. Barona Guild training ground. Both sides were ready for battle. Albert leaped up and charged forward. A vertical slash was blocked by Rudd's raised sword. Then countless sword strikes swept in. His swordsmanship was clearly a level above. As an elf, he could use attack magic and enhancement magic in combat. Now the opponent was a magic swordsman. Suddenly, the opponent flashed behind him. Rudd took a solid sword hit. He couldn't keep up with the opponent's speed with his eyes alone. At this point, Albert revealed his level. B-rank adventurer. Only corresponding strength could be granted this level. In his view, Rudd didn't deserve this title. At this moment, Rudd's hand also gathered a magic circle. A massive fist burst from the ground. At the same time, Albert also cast magic. Two energies collided, exploding instantly. But after the smoke cleared, the opponent had already condensed a magic orb, flying toward Rudd's position. But the next second, it was absorbed by the cursed sword. This scene completely exceeded Albert's expectations. The cursed sword's power doubled after absorbing magic, then quickly charged forward. The situation began to reverse. Albert had to retreat to create distance. He cast magic again, skill, lightning, attaching lightning to himself, charging forward with thunderous speed. Rudd couldn't dodge and was hit head-on. Waves of electricity coursed through his body. Albert confidently thought Rudd could no longer move after this strike. Just when he thought it was over, Rudd clearly stood up, status abnormality, paralysis nullified, then headbutted forward. Albert broke out in a cold sweat from the strike. The duel's outcome was decided. Meanwhile, both guilds were still discussing labyrinth compensation. However, the opponents were pushing their luck. Just then, the door was suddenly pushed open. A burial labyrinth was confirmed to have completely collapsed.